Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Prapta Sakalyana Gurnanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaro Vrindam Prapta Sakalyana Gurnanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaro Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Mahaprabhu ki Tananita Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Sena Romanchakam Pasu Taranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shringaratanama Niramarjanado Shri Joktasya Bhaktamsa Niyunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasado Satana Truptan Haribhakta Sangam Bhagavat Prasado Satana Truptan Kridvaiva Trupti Bhajata Shadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Shri Radhika Mo Davayara Para Madhura Leela Guna Rupa Namna Shri Radhika Madhura Leela Guna Rupa Namna Pratikshana Swa Dhanalalupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Ne kunja yono ratikari siddhai jayali bhir jukti apekshaneya yono ratikari siddhai jayali bhir jukti Tatrati daksha ativalabhasya Bande guru shi charanoro vrindam Sacha dharitena Shamasta shashre Rukta tatava Gataiva sadhavi Sakya dharitena Shamasta shashre Kintu prabhoja Priyaeva tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaro Vrindam Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yasya Prasada Nagati Kutapi Yasya Prasada Prasada, Yasya Prasada, Bhagavat Prasada, Yasya Prasada, Nagati Kutapi, Yasya Prasada, Bhagavat Prasada, Yasya Prasada. Dayam stuvam tasya yasatri sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charunaro Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charunaro Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanaro Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanaro Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunnavadi Pachattari Shatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gora Bhakta Vrinda Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, oh, Hare Krishna, oh, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, oh, Hare Rama, oh, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hariyaraye Namah, Krishna Jadavaye Namah, Jadavaye Madhavaye Kesavaye Namah, Gopal Govinda Ram Shimadhusudan, Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan, Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita, Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita, Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghuna, Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghuna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Radha, Nila Madhava Radha, Nila Madhava Radhe. Jayo Jagana, Jayo Baladeva, Jayo Subhadrama, Jayo Sudarshan Chakra. Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Jaya Lakshmana Numa, Sitaram, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo, Haribo. Jai Vishwapara Paramahansa Prabhajaka Acharya Sutara Sarasishima. His divine grace of Hocharavina Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj. Srila Prabhupada ki. ISKCON Pratiष्ठा Bhaviti Samstapakachar Vaishnav Siramani Patita Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj ki jai, Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patita Udhar ki jai, Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhakta Raghunath, Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Guna Sat Goswami Prabhu ki jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ji ki jai, Ananta Kuj Vaishnavrind ki jai, Prem se kaho se Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktavrind ki jai, Jai Param Dayal Shri Nityananda Prabhu ki jai, Prema Nama Sankirtane Ka Janaka Prema Purushottama Shri Sachinandan Shman Gauranga Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaura Hari Mahavrana Avatar ki jai, Golokera Pramadhan Harinam Sankirtan Jaga ki jai, Juga Dharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai, Brihad Nidanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva ki jai, Shri Radha Krishna Gopuk Narada Kun Samkun Giriraj Govardhan ki jai, Shri Brajabhum Vrindavan Mathur Dham ki jai, The Lordship Shri Radha Nilamadhava ki jai, Shri Shri Maya Purnavadvip Eka Chakra Dham ki jai, Param Karuna Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai, Shri Purushottam Kitra Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai, Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu Smaspodra Devi Sudarshan Chakra Bhagwan ki jai, Sitaram Lakshman Bhakta Hanuman ji ki jai, Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Karan Shingare Bhagwan ki jai, Jaganga Mai Jamuna Mai ki jai, Turas Maharani Vrindi Devi Bhakti Devi ki jai, Shri Mathura Dharani ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrindi ki jai, Nitai Gaurari Pramanandi. All glory to the Assembly bodies, all glory to the Assembly bodies, all glory to the Assembly bodies, all glory to Shri Guru, Shri Guru. Jaho, Haribo.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narayana.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Prahlad Lad Daine.
Prahlad
Hiranyakashi Purvasaha. Shilatankana Kalaye.
Shilatankana Kalaye.
Yeto Narsingha Parto Narsingha.
Tani Singha Paratani Singha.
Yato Yato Yami Tato Narsingha.
Jata Jata Jami Tatani Singha.
Bahe Narsingha Hirdaye Narsingha.
Vaini Singha Hridaye Singha.
Narsinghamadhim Sharanam Prapade. Tav kar kamal vare nakam adbhuta shringam dalita hiranyakashipu tanu bringa keshavadhirta narahari rupa. Jai Jagadish Hare, Jai Jagadish Hare. Tav kar kamal Hare Aham Bhut Chinda. Hiranyakashipu Tanavrinda. Keshavadhirta Narahari Rupa. Hare Jai Jagadish Jai जय जगदीश जय नरसिंह देव जय नरसिंह देव जय नरसिंह देव जय नरसिंह देव
जय निसिंह रे जय निसिंह रे निसिंह रे जय निसिंह रे
जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय प्रहलाद महाराज
जय भक्त प्रहलाद भक्त प्रहलाद भक्त प्रहलाद जय प्रहलाद
जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय गुरुदेव 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 बोल नरसिंह भगवान की जय भक्त प्रहलाद की जय प्रभुपाद महाराज की जय गुरुदेव महाराज की जय गौर प्रेम
श्री वृंदाय तुलसी बाई प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादे देवी सत्यवताय नमः वृंदाय तुलसी बाई प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादे देवी सत्यवताय नमः वृंदाय तुलसी रे भाई प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादे देवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रियासी नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पाओ ऐ अभिलाषी
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पाओ हे अभिलाषी
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पाओ ऐ अभिलाषी
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पाओ हे अभिलाषी
जे तमारा शरण लो तारा वंचा पूर्ण हो कृपा करी करो तारे वृंदावन वासी
कृपा करी करो तारे वृंदावन वासी
मोरा अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियो नयने हरि वो सदा युगल रूप राशि निवेदन धरो सखीर अनुगत करो सेवाधिकार दिए करो निज दासी दीना कृष्ण दास कोई जिना मोरा होए श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदा न भासी श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदा न भासी श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदा ज्ञानी कानी च पापानि सब महत्याधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ते प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे ज्ञानी कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यानि हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय महारानी जय वृंदा देवी 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 नित्य गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि हरे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे राम हरे राम 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 हरे
Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Tulsi Maharani,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी महारानी की जय।
Shri Vrindai Tulasi Devi Priya Ke Sava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Shratavata Namo. Vrindai Tulasi Devi Priya Ke Sava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Shratavata Namo. Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyai Ke Sava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavata Namo. Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Oh Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of your wishes fulfilled, bestow myself on him, you make me resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also give me a residence in pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower carry the answers of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own man servant. This very fallen and lowly servant Krishna prays. May I always swim in love with Shri Radha. Shri Mati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Krishna Ki Jai. Namah Amani namana dena kirtaniya salahi. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because His praise is raised in the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. And thus you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested your transcendental energies. It is not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names. But I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself a Lord on stony street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your cause that was from service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I'm fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of birth, and then place me as one of the atoms of your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and will the hairs of my body stand on the end of the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I'm considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and He sure remains so. Even if sunders me roughly by His embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me, He is completely free to do anything and everything. It's always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri Shri Krishna Ki Jai. There are 10 offenses in that of chanting the holy name of the Lord that must be avoided. They are as follows. 1. Blaspheme the bodies with dedicated life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods, Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literatures and pursuits of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glory of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation of the holy name of the Lord. 7. to commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna is one of the auspicious ritualistic activities offered in Vedas, a fruitive activity, karma kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person by the glories of the holy name. And 10. Do not have complete faith in chanting the holy names and to maintain material attachments, even of understanding so many instructions in this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must carefully guard against 10 offenses
in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema.
Now let us offer our
respectful
obeisance unto
all the
the
Vaishnava
Vaishnavas
devotees
of
of
the
the Lord.
They are
just
just
like
like desired trees that can fulfill the desires of everyone,
And
they
they
are full of compassion
for the
for the
fallen
conditioned
conditioned
soul.
souls. Vanchakalpatarabhyascha, Kipasindubhyavcha, Patanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha, Vaishnava Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraj Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Janmadhyasya yato niviyata nivayad itaratash chartes vavigyaswarat.
Janmadhyasya yatam vayaditaratascha swavigyasvara.
Tene Brahma Hridaya Adhikavaye Muyanti Yatsuryaha.
Tenne Brahmardaya Adhikavaye Moyanti Jasuraya.
Tejo Varimidam Yata Vinuya Yatro Trisargom Risha.
Tejo Varimridan Jata Vinemayo Jatra Trisagurmisya.
Damna Svena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dhimayi.
Damna Svena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi.
O my Lord Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva.
O my Lord Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva.
O all-pervading personality God.
O all-pervading personality God.
My respectful obeisance unto you.
Offer my respectful obeisance unto
I
you.
meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth.
I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is
And the primeval
absolute truth.
cause of all causes.
And the primeval cause of all causes.
Of creation, sustenance, and destruction of manifested universes.
Of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes.
He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations.
He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations.
And he is independent because there's no other cause beyond.
And he is independent because there's no other cause beyond
It
him.
is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji,
It is she only who first imparted Vedic knowledge into the heart of the
the
Brahmaji,
original living being.
the original living being.
By him, even great sages and demigods are placed into illusion,
By him, even great sages and demigods are placed into illusion.
as one is bewildered by the illusory
As
representation
one is bewildered by the illusory representation
of water, sin, and fire, or land, sin, or
of water, sin, the fire, land, sin, the water.
only because of him do the material universes,
Only because of him do the material universe.
temporarily manifested by reactions as three modes of nature,
Temporarily manifested by the reactions of three modes of
are pure
nature.
factual, although they are
Are
real.
pure factual, although they
I
are
therefore
real.
meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna,
I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna,
who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode,
who is eternally existent in the transcendental,
which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world.
which is forever free from the illusory representation of material world.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
Dharma projita kaitruvocha,
Dharma Pujita Kaitavutra,
paramo nimatsaranam satam,
Karmo Nimasharana,
vedyam vastavam atravastu,
Vedyam Vastavamastro,
shivadam tapatrayanu,
Shivadam Taputremano,
Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite,
Bhagavate Mahamuni,
Kim Vapare Ishvara,
Kim Vapadishvara,
Sadyo Hridya Varujate Tra,
Sadhurudya Varujati,
Krite Bihi Sususubista,
Kritivi Shushuvistatana,
completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated.
completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated.
This this Bhagavad Purana propounds the highest truth,
This Bhagavad Puran propounds the highest truth,
which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart.
which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in the heart.
The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
The highest truth is their reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of
Such
all.
truth uproots the threefold miseries.
Such truth uproots the threefold miseries.
This beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in its maturity
This beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by great sage Vyasadeva is
is
maturity.
sufficient in itself for God realization.
It is sufficient itself for God realization.
What is the need of any other scripture?
What is the need of the other scriptures?
As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam,
As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of
by this
Bhagavatam,
culture of knowledge,
by this
the
culture of
Supreme
knowledge,
Lord is established within his heart.
the Supreme is established within
Nigama
his mouth.
kalpataror galitam phalam.
Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam.
Sukamukad amrita dravya samyatam.
Shukamukhad Amrita
Pibata bhagavatam rasamalayam.
Vivata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam.
Muhur aho raska bhavivavakaha.
Mura Horasika Bhuviva.
O expert and thoughtful men relish Srimad Bhagavatam.
O expert and thoughtful man, relish Srimad
The
Bhagavatam.
mature fruit of the desired two Vedic literatures.
The mature fruit of the desired true Vedic.
It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadev Goswami.
It emanated from the lips of Sri Shukadev Goswami.
Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful.
Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful.
Although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all,
Although its nectarian juice is all relishable for all,
including liberated souls.
including liberated souls.
Shinvatam Swakita Krishna.
Shambhatam Swakata Krishna.
Punya Shravana Kirtana.
Punya Shravana Kirtana.
Hridyantak Stohi Bhadrani.
Vidyantastuhya Bhadrani.
Vidunati Srit Satam.
Vidu Noti Surit.
To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures.
To hear about Krishna from Vedic literature,
Or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita.
or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita,
Is itself righteous activity.
it is self-righteous activity.
And for one who hears about Krishna,
And for who hears about Krishna,
Lord Krishna is dwelling in everyone's heart.
Lord Krishna is dwelling within everyone's heart.
Acts as a best wishing friend.
Acts as the best wishing
And
friend.
purifies a devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him.
And purifies the body, constantly engages in hearing from him.
Nastapayesu Bhadresu
Nasta Praishra Bhadrishu
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata
Bhagavati Uttamasloke
Bhagavati Uttama Sloke
Bhaktir Bhavati Naistaki.
Bhakti Bhavati Nasta.
In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge.
In this way, the devotee naturally develop the dormant transcendental
As
knowledge.
he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam
As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam
and from the devotees,
and from the
he
devotees,
becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord.
becomes fixed in devotional service of the Lord.
Tajarajastamo Bhava
Tadarajastamo Bhava
Kamalobhadayaschaye
Kamalobhadaya
Cheta Etairanavitam
Chaitaitaranavidam
Stitvam Sattve Prasidati.
Stitam Savipasidati.
By development of devotional service
By development of devotional
of the
service.
Lord, by development of devotional service, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge. By development of devotional service, one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance.
By development of devotional service, one becomes free from the mode of passion and ignorance.
And thus material lust and avarice are diminished.
And as material lust and avarice are diminished.
Evam prasana manaso
Evam prasanna manas
Bhagavat Bhakti Yogataha
Bhagavat Bhakti Yoga
Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam
Bhagavat Tattva Vijnana
Sangasya Jayate.
Mukta Sangha Sanjaya.
When these impurities are wiped away,
When these impurities are
the
wiped away,
candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness,
the candidate remains steady in his position. of
becomes
pure
enlivened by
goodness,
devotional
becomes
service,
enlivened by devotional service,
and understands the science of God perfectly.
and understands the science of God perfectly.
Vidyate Hridaya Grantis,
Vidyate Hridaya Grantis,
Chidyante Sarva Samsaya,
Chidyante Sarva Samshaya,
Shiyante Chasya Karmani,
Chiyante Chisa Karmani,
Krista Evat Manishwari.
Daivan Manishwari.
Thus Bhakti Yoga severs the heart not of material affection,
Thus the Bhakti Yoga serves the heart of material affection
and enables one to come at once to the stage of Samsayam Samagram,
and enables us to come at once to the stage of assumption,
understanding of the supreme absolute truth, personality of God.
understanding the supreme absolute true personality of God.
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotees in Krishna consciousness
can one understand the science of Krishna.
can one understand the science of
Guru
Krishna.
Vastika prayers. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy.
The spiritual master receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy,
Just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it,
just as cow pours plant on the forest fire to extinguish it.
so the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence.
So the spiritual master delivers the material afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence.
For my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet is such a spiritual master who is an ocean of auspicious qualities.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master who is the ocean of the auspicious qualities.
Chanting the holy name and dancing in ecstasy,
Chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy,
singing and playing musical instruments.
singing and playing musical instruments.
The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu,
Spiritual master is also gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya
because
Mahaprabhu,
he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind.
Because he's relishing the metals of pure devotion within his
Sometimes his hair stands on end.
Sometimes bodily hairs stand on end.
He feels quivering in his body,
He feels quivering in his body,
and tears flow from his eyes like waves.
and tears flow from his eyes like.
I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
Offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual
The
master.
spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food.
The spiritual master is always engaged. Verse number 3.
I'm sorry. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna.
The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna.
He also engages his disciples in such worship.
He also engages his disciples in such worship.
They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments,
They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments.
and clean their temple,
Clean their temple
and perform similar worship of the Lord.
and perform other similar worship of the Lord.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual
The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food.
The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food.
Analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked.
Analyze that as that which is licked, chewed, drunk,
When the
and
spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasada,
when the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasad,
he is satisfied.
he is
I
satisfied.
offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual
The
master.
spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava.
The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastime, Shri Radhika and Madhava,
And their qualities, names, and forms.
and about their qualities, names, and forms.
The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment.
The spiritual master aspires to relish these every
I
moment.
offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisances to the Lord to such a spiritual master.
The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert in assisting the gopis,
The spiritual master is very dear because he's expert in assisting the gopis.
who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs.
Who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs
Within the
in
groves of
Vrindavan.
Vrindavana, I offer my respectful I offer my most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
I offer my most humble obeisance unto the Lord's feet of such a spiritual master.
The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord,
The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord
because he is the most confidential servitor of the Lord.
because he's the most confidential servant of the Lord.
This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures
This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures
and followed by all authorities.
and followed by all authorities.
Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master,
Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus feet of such a spiritual
who is a
master,
bona fide representative of Sri Hari Krishna.
who is a bona fide representative of Sri Hari.
By the mercy of the spiritual master,
By the mercy of the spiritual master,
one received the benediction of Krishna.
one received the benediction of Krishna.
Without the grace of the spiritual master,
Without the grace of the spiritual master,
one cannot make any spiritual advancement.
one cannot make any advancement.
Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master.
Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual
At least 3
master.
times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master.
At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisances unto the Lotus feet of my spiritual
Srimad
master.
Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 4, Text 18. Kirata hunandra linda pulkasa abhira sumba yavana kasadaya
Abhira Shumba Javana Kasadaya
yenecha papa yadapasraya
Yenyecha Papa Yadabastraya Shaya
sudayanti tasmai prabha vishnave namaha.
Sudhyanti Tasmai Prabhavishnave Namaha.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Kirata Huna Andhra Pulinda Pulkasa Abhira Sumba Yavana, members of the Kasa races, and even others addicted to sinful acts can be purified by taking shelter of the devotees of the Lord due to his, meaning Krishna, being the supreme power. I beg to offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Kirata, a province of old Bharatavarsha mentioned in the Bhisma Parva of Mahabharata. Generally, The Kiratas are known as the aboriginal tribes of India, and in modern days, the Santal Parganas in Bihar and Chota Nagpur might comprise the old province named Kirata. Huna. The area of East Germany and part of Russia is known as the province of the Hunas. Accordingly, sometimes a kind of hill tribe is known as the Hunas. Andhra, a province in southern India mentioned in the Bhisma Parva of Mahabharata. It is still extant under the same name. Pulinda. It is mentioned in Mahabharata, Adi Parva 174.38. That is, the inhabitants of the province of the name Pulinda. This country was conquered by Bhismasena and Sahadeva. The Greeks are known as Pulindas, and it is mentioned in the Vishnu Parva of the Mahabharata that the non-Vedic race of this part of the world would rule over the world. This Pulinda province was also one of the provinces of Bharata, and the inhabitants were classified amongst the Kshatriya kings, but later on, due to their giving up the Brahminical culture, they were mentioned as Malechas, just as those who are not followers of the Islamic culture are called Kafirs, and those who are not followers of the heathen culture are called heathens. Abira. This name also appears in the Mahabharata, both in the Sabha Parva and Bhisma Parva. It is mentioned that this province was situated on the river Saraswati in Sindh. The modern Sindh province formerly extended on the other side of the Arabian Sea, and all the inhabitants of that province were known as Abiras. They were under the domination of Maharaj Yudhishthira, and according to the statements of Markandeya, the Malechas of this part of the world would also rule over Bharat. Later on, this proved to be true, as in the case of the Pulindas. On behalf of the Pulindas, Alexander the Great conquered India, and on behalf of the Abiras, Muhammad Ghori conquered India. And by the way, Muhammad Ghori was a Persian. He wasn't an Arab. These Abiras were also formerly Kshatriyas within the Brahminical culture, but they gave up the connection. The Kshatriyas who were afraid of Parasuram and had hidden themselves in the Caucasian hilly regions later on became known as the Abiras, and the place they inhabited was known as Abiradesha. Sumbas or Kankas, the inhabitants of the Kanka province of old Bharat, mentioned in the Mahabharata. Yavanas. Yavanas are the name of one of the sons of Maharaj Yayati, who was given the part of the world known as Turkey to rule. Therefore, the Turks are Yavanas due to being descendants of Maharaj Yavana. The Yavanas were therefore Kshatriyas, and later on, by giving up the Brahminical culture, they became Malecha Yavanas. Descriptions of the Yavanas are in the Mahabharata, Adi Parva 85.34. Another prince called Turvasu was also known as Yavana. So prince means he must have been a son of Yavana. And his country was conquered by Sahadeva, one of the Pandavas. The western Yavanas joined with Duryodhana in the battle of Kurukshetra under the pressure of Karna. It is also foretold that these Yavanas would also conquer India, and it proved to be true. So the Turks, there are Turkish people or Turkic people in Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, places like that, which are in southern Russia. And the modern Turkey is in what's called Asia Minor. And so, therefore, that's why, I'm not absolutely sure, but I think that's why there's a slight difference between Yavana and Turvasu. So Turvasu means he was a prince, and he was also known as Yavana, and his country was conquered by Sahadev, one of the Pandavas. So that would be the western Yavana, who joined with Duryodhana in the Battle of Kurukshetra under the pressure of Karna. And then there was Yavana himself, not the Prince Turvasu, and they're more like the Eastern Turks, like in Kazakhstan and places like that. But we can double check that. Anyway, next, Kasas, or Kasa. The inhabitants of Kasa days are mentioned in the Mahabharata, Drona Parva. Those who have a stunted growth of hair on the upper lip are generally called Kasas. As such, the Kasa are the Mongolians, the Chinese, and others who are so designated. So therefore you have Kiratas, which are Aboriginal people in what's called India. And then you have the Hunas, which are like the Germans and maybe the Russians. And then the Andhras, well, they're still the same. And then the Pulindas are the Greeks, and the Abiras are the Persians, and the Sumbas or Hankas, I'm not quite sure about them, but they're part of Bharata. And then the Yavanas are Turks and Turkish or Turkic people, and the Kasas are the Mongolians and the Chinese. These are all considered what you would call contaminated races of people, but they also can become Krishna conscious. It's not that they have no pathway to Krishna consciousness. They also, anyone who surrenders to Krishna and his pure devotee can become a bona fide Vaishnava. The above-mentioned historical names are different nations of the world. Even those who are constantly engaged in sinful acts are all corrigible to the standard of perfect human beings if they take shelter of the devotees of the Lord. Jesus Christ and Muhammad, two powerful devotees of the Lord, have done tremendous service on behalf of the Lord on the surface of the earth. And from the version of Srila Sukadeva Goswami, it appears that instead of running a godless civilization in the present context of the world situation, if the leadership of world affairs is entrusted to the devotees of the Lord, for which a worldwide organization under the name and style of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness has already been started, then, by the grace of the Almighty Lord, there can be a thorough change of heart in human beings all over the world, because the devotees of the Lord are able authorities to effect the change by purifying the dust-worn minds of the people in general. So this is a wonderful statement by Prabhupada. I hope it's true. And it's our obligation to make it true. The politicians of the world may remain in their respective positions because pure devotees of the Lord are not interested in political leadership or diplomatic implications. The devotees are interested only in seeing that the people in general are not misguided by political propaganda, and in seeing that the valuable life of human being is not spoiled in following a type of civilization which is ultimately doomed. So there's a statement by a famous British politician who said, "The first victim of war is the truth." An example of that would be Colin Powell, who went to the United Nations General Assembly with charts and Excel sheets and photographs to prove that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction and he was planning to use them. And all this is not exactly true. And later on, after America invaded Iraq, they didn't find any weapons of mass destruction. So the whole thing was a hoax, and that's why the British politician, before the Americans went into Iraq, way before even World War II, he said, "The first victim of war is the truth." because you have to lie to convince people to go to war most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. The devotees are interested only in seeing that the people in general are not misguided by political propaganda, and in seeing that the valuable life of a human being is not spoiled in following a type of civilization which is ultimately doomed. Well, we're living right now in a type of civilization which is ultimately doomed. Anywhere who kills 1 to 1.5 million babies a year and kills at least 80 million cows a year and 1 billion fish and 1 billion chickens and 60,000 pigs and sheep and so forth, with such massive killing of innocent animals and children, what do you think will happen to such a country? The civilization is doomed. It's just a matter of time because of the outlandish and out of control sinful activity that's taking place. And the politicians are not doing anything to stop it. If anything, they're encouraging it to continue. If the politicians, therefore, would be guided by the good counsel of the devotees, then certainly there would be a great change in the world situation by the purifying propaganda of the devotees, as shown by Lord Chaitanya. As Sukadeva Goswami began his prayer by discussing the word Yat Kirtanam, so also Lord Chaitanya recommended that simply by glorifying the Lord's holy name, a tremendous change of heart can take place, by which the complete misunderstanding between the human nations created by politicians can at once be extinguished. Notice he says created by the politicians. The common people are on the same wavelength, but they get derailed by the false propaganda of the politicians. So, and also Lord Chaitanya recommended that simply by glorifying the Lord's holy name, in other words, chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, a tremendous change of heart can take place by which the complete misunderstanding between the human nations created by politicians can at once be extinguished. So, it's the second time he mentions the change of heart. What does that mean, the change of heart? Well, a heart is a seat of emotions. So, if we become convinced that everyone is a child of God, everyone is coming from Krishna, and there's no reason to wage war with one's kin, therefore one does not become duped or fooled by political propaganda. What does political propaganda do? Well, we have an example of it today. Today, you have what's called the cancel culture. People canceling things that were considered traditional. And of course, the original cancel culture started by the Mayavadis who tried to cancel Vaikuntha, Goloka, Krishna, Nanda Maharaj, Yasodamai, Gopis, Gopas, residents of Vaikuntha. They try and cancel all of that. So they were the original cancel culture people. And you have the modern component of it. And then there's also critical race theory. So what is the critical race theory? That is that white supremacy must be abolished. And therefore, they are teaching this in elementary school, middle school, and high school now to children. They're teaching white kids that they're evil, and they started this country to exploit people of color. Now, that may be true to some extent, but to brand people by the color of their skin it's called racism. So whether you have one kind of racism or another kind of racism, it's all racism. And it's all going to create more trouble in the future, which is happening. Now there's a war also on white supremacists. They're considered the most dangerous element of, let's say, of people in the United States. So Biden has made he has declared a jihad on the white supremacists, not on Muslim extremists, but the white supremacists. So, yeah, okay, there are bad people, no doubt about it, in all races. And just to signal out one particular race, and not go globally against all errant people or demoniac people, that's a mistake, and that will just backfire. Okay, so in the Bhagavad Gita also it says, Krishna, hearing the devotee's words of love in offering foodstuffs, is wholly identical with his eating and actually tasting. This point should be emphasized because of his absolute position. His hearing is wholly identical with his eating and tasting. Only the devotee who accepts Krishna as he describes himself without interpretation can understand that the Supreme Absolute Truth can eat food and enjoy it. So everybody's eating. So we can teach all the black people, all the white people, all the yellow people, all the green people, all the purple people, everybody, how to offer their food to Krishna and receive it back as prasadam, and along with that chant Hare Krishna, and that would effectuate the change of heart of everybody. And that would not single out anyone as the enemy, but make everyone the friend of Krishna. So this is positive preaching. And this other nonsense about let's signal out the white supremacists, or let's signal out black people, or let's signal out yellow people. Just like, Chinese-looking people are being beaten up in the streets by black people and white people. And white people are being beaten up by black people, and black people are being beaten up by white people and killed also, and so forth. So this is all the play of the politicians. It's called, this whole strategy was refined and perfected by the British. It's called divide and conquer. So as long as you have one group that's favored and another group that's the enemy, that's called politics. Friends and enemies. Politics creates friends and enemies. Right? So this is all nonsense. It's all misinformation. It's all designed to keep everyone away from Krishna consciousness and becoming body consciousness. Just like there's this famous story in Armenia about a black man falls in love with a white princess, and the princess falls in love with the black man. So because she's white, she finds a way of turning herself into black, and during that time she's separated from the black guy. But during that time, the black guy finds a way to turn himself into white. And eventually when they meet, now she's black and he's white. So there's a story like that, it's an ancient story. So it just shows the craziness of people, because the color of the skin is only skin deep. If you go below it's not even a quarter inch, not even an eighth of an inch into the body, and it's all everything is red and white and brown and so forth. All the colors are there inside the body, but the blood is all red. So whether you're black or you're white, your blood is red. So you see, all this is called skin disease. Everyone has got this skin disease of trying to identify people according to the color of their skin. And it's nonsense. But this is taken advantage of by the politicians. And they create all these different designations, just like LGBTQ, XYZ, to you. You know, now there's so many different genders, and it's become very complicated. Everyone can choose their own pronouns. This is all nonsense. It's just increasing, separating people into friends and enemies. Okay, so the simple process of Krishna consciousness could change the heart of everyone. But who is listening? So therefore, we continue. As Sukadeva Goswami began his prayer by discussing the word Yat Kirtanam, so also Lord Chaitanya recommended that simply by glorifying the Lord's holy name, a tremendous change of heart can take place, by which the complete misunderstanding between the human nations created by politicians can at once be extinguished. And after the extinction of the fire of misunderstanding, other prophets will follow. The designation is to go back home, back to Godhead, as we have several times discussed in these pages. The destination is to go back home, back to Godhead, as we have several times discussed in these pages. According to the cult of devotion, generally known as the Vaishnava cult, there is no bar against anyone's advancing in the matter of God realization. Yeah, all welcome. Everyone can become Krishna conscious. Doesn't matter what race you are, what economic status you have, what education or lack of education you have. None of those things are important because they're all related to the body. What's important is your spiritual relationship with Krishna, your soul. A Vaishnava is powerful enough to turn into a Vaishnava, even a Kirata. So, the Kiratas are jungle people, tribal people, etc., as above mentioned, the Kiratas and all the others, as mentioned. In the Bhagavad Gita 9:32, it is said by the Lord that there is no bar to becoming a devotee of the Lord, even for those who are low-born or women, Sudras, and Vaishyas. And by becoming a devotee, everyone is eligible to return home back to Godhead. The only qualification is that one takes shelter of a pure devotee of the Lord who has thorough knowledge in the transcendental science of Krishna. Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam are two quintessential books of science explaining everything about the material world and the spiritual world. Anyone from any part of the world who becomes well conversant in the science of Krishna becomes a pure devotee and a spiritual master for the general mass of people and may reclaim them by purification of heart. So you have change of heart twice and now purification of heart. So this is what a pure devotee and a spiritual master does for the general mass of people. There's no discrimination based on color or education or money, etc. Though a person be even the most sinful man, he can at once be purified by systematic contact with a pure Vaishnava. So systematic contact with pure Vaishnava means regular association with genuine devotees. A Vaishnava, therefore, can accept a bona fide disciple from any part of the world without any consideration of caste and creed, and promote him by regulative principles to the status of a pure Vaishnava who is transcendental to Brahminical culture. Now, the caste Brahmins would reject this statement. And there's many people like that in India. They say, no, this is not true. Your guru is wrong. You have to be born in a Brahmin family, blah, blah, blah. It's all nonsense. And the system of caste or varnashram dharma is no longer regular, even amongst the so-called followers of the system. Nor is it now possible to reestablish the institutional function in the present context of social, political, and economic revolution. Yeah, there's a revolution against regulative principles. So how can you develop the original varnashram system? It's not possible. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya came and said, anyone who chants Hare Krishna and takes instruction from bona fide gurus, Shikshantik gurus, is in a transcendental position. Transcendental even to being a Brahmana. Nor is it now possible to reestablish the institutional function in the present context of social, political, and economic revolution without any reference to the particular custom of a country. One can be accepted by the Vaishnava cult spiritually, and there is no hindrance in the transcendental process. This is all amazing statements by Srila Prabhupada. So, by the order of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the cult of Srimad Bhagavatam or the Bhagavad Gita can be preached all over the world, reclaiming all persons willing to accept the transcendental cult. Such cultural propaganda by the devotees will certainly be accepted by all persons who are reasonable and inquisitive, without any particular bias for the custom of the country. The Vaishnava never accepts another Vaishnava on the basis of birthright, just as he never thinks of the deity of the Lord in a temple as an idol. And to remove all doubts in this connection, Srila Sukadeva Goswami has invoked the blessings of the Lord who is all-powerful, Prabhavishnave Namaha. As the all-powerful Lord accepts the humble service of his devotee in devotional activities of the Archana, his form as the worshipable deity in the temple. Similarly, the body of a pure Vaishnava changes transcendentally at once when he gives himself up to the service of the Lord and is trained by a qualified Vaishnava. The injunction of Vaishnava regulation in this connection runs as follows: Arche Vishno Shiladir Gurusu Naramatir Vaishnave Jati Buddhi Shri Vishnu Namni Sabda Samanye Buddhi, etc. One should not consider the deity of the Lord as worshipped in the temple to be an idol, nor should one consider the authorized spiritual master an ordinary man. One should not consider a pure Vaishnava to belong to a particular caste, etc. Padma Purana. The conclusion is that the Lord, being all-powerful, can, under any and every circumstance, accept anyone from any part of the world, either personally or through his bona fide manifestation as the spiritual master. Lord Chaitanya accepted many devotees from the communities other than the Varnashramites, and he himself declared to teach us that he does not belong to any caste or social order of life, but that he is the eternal servant of the Lord, who maintains the damsels of Vrindavana, meaning Lord Krishna. That is the way of self-realization. Srila Prabhupada, Patita Bhavani Ki Jai. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Are there any questions? Yeah, Lord Chaitanya said, Gopi Bharatur Padakamalayam Dasa 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 Dasa. He said, I'm not a Brahmana, I'm not a Kshatriya, I'm not a Vaishya, I'm not a Sudra, I'm not a Brahmachari, I'm not a Grihastha, I'm not a Vanaprastha, I'm not a sannyasi. I am Gopi Bharatur Padakamalayam Dasa Dasa Dasana Dasa. I'm the servant of the servant of the servants of the gopis who are servants of Krishna. So that eliminates all the nationalists, the people who allege allegiance to flags, people who identify racially, everybody that has a false identification. It eliminates all of them. And anyone can become a pure devotee. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.